He comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for the wonderful culture blaster, Michael Snyder? Hello, sir. Yes. Oh, I've got to turn your mic on. Thank you. Now, go ahead. Okay.
An attempt to stifle this voice that reaches out every Friday at the end of the show. And speaking of the end of the show, it's already a minute past the end of the show.
Is
well
it
done.
really?
It's
Oh
101. You know, I don't know where we are.
Give me your best 5 minutes.
You're killing me, Mark. Speaking of killing me, like many, I hoped our long national reality TV generated nightmare was almost over, but it looks as if an even worse one is about to begin. I'm just grateful to live in the free Republic of California.
Yeah.
I don't know for how much longer we're going to be able to live our lives, but meanwhile, we're witnessing the acquisition of the most consequential and treacherous get-out-of-jail card in history, I think.
Yeah, it is true, Michael.
It's just crazy. And, you know, if I'm a little down today, that's probably the reason why. But let's see if we can lift some spirits or at least get people to look at something over the weekend that will take them away from the horrors of horror. That's right. The first movie we're covering is a horror movie.
Of course, you love your horror. Hang on a second. I need my coffee, and I'm very excited to be able to get it. Hold on a second.
Yeah, down the hatch.
This is Coachella Valley coffee, Michael. You got to get hip to. Oh, you do. You drink it when
I'm
you come
sipping
here.
Coffee from your green room right now.
Yeah, that's good.
And it is Coachella.
Best.
It is truly the best coffee I have ever tasted. And speaking of your beautiful harp music.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, there it is. Talk about Mark Thompson show, Time Wasters, the harp music. My friend Jill could record you a dedicated harp glissando if you want.
Oh, whatever.
She has a beautiful harp.
Glissando is a ding word.
Trained classical harpist. Okay, down to business. Rather than balk at aging out of his trademark, sheepish, floppy-haired, stammering leading man rom-com roles,
yes.
Hugh Grant made a really smart career choice by taking on and really deftly executing more unsavory parts, playing against type, I guess. He was a criminal in Guy Ritchie movies. He's the husband of questionable virtue in the HBO miniseries The Undoing, and now he's a strange, sinister, and apparently a brilliant man named Mr. Reed in the canny and subtle horror movie Heretic, wherein two young female Mormon missionaries arrive at an isolated ramshackle house on a dreary afternoon, and they're brought there by a request from the man who lives there. And even though they have been told to only enter a room if there is a woman present as some kind of protection, he suggested his wife is busy baking a blueberry pie and they should come in, and he'd like to speak with them about the Church of the Latter-day Saints. But in fact, what he really wants to do is something I don't want to get into great depth about because I don't want to ruin people's enjoyment of the film, but it's a very smart look at belief, religion, faith, and other things as seen through the lens of psychological horror. And this guy, he's a piece of work. The women that play the two Mormon missionaries are very, very good. And one of them actually is a pop singer, if I'm not mistaken, and that would be Sophie Thatcher. And they tagged the movie with a performance by her. And the other young woman, Chloe East, is also good. They're Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. And by the way, Topher Grace shows up in a small role as a Mormon elder, and you can barely recognize him, but I have to say this thing drew me in. And I also want to point out that it might be the best work from the co-writer directors Scott Beck and Brian Woods. I think it might be their best work. And they, in fact, co-wrote A Quiet Place, the post-apocalyptic sci-fi horror movie. And they've done a couple of other things. One clinker called The Science, it was the 65 with Adam Driver. I didn't particularly like it, but Beck and Woods really nailed this thing.
Now, this is a horror movie, though.
It is. It's a psychological horror film, and there are some grisly moments, but it's not a blood-splattered situation. And it's more about about him manipulating these two women and also discussing issues of life, death, whether religion has any real serious underpinnings. It worked for me.
So they're not these boo moments like the sudden oh my God.
There's a couple of jump scares, but
nothing that will
jack your blood pressure into any kind
Okay.
of treacherous level. I did think that it was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. Heretic is in theaters, and that's wide across this great nation of ours, or this once great nation, if you're like me and a little leery of where things are going.
What else do you have? A great culture blaster.
A better movie than that, I thought, is a movie called Small Things Like These. And it is grounded by a subtle and brilliantly shaded performance by Cillian Murphy, who you know as Tommy Shelby in the absolutely unmissable TV crime drama and family saga Peaky Blinders. And Murphy has done a lot of great work over the years. And here he gives a depth and heart to Small Things Like These as I guess we'd call him a coal merchant. He's a coal salesman, Bill Furlong, and he lives in an Irish town. And this is Christmas in 1985, with all that period implying. And while there and delivering coal to a local convent / laundry, he discovers a young girl who's seemingly in peril. And what this movie is, at its heart, is a very provocative look at the horrifying true circumstances of Ireland's Magdalen laundries. And these were crosses between convents, asylums, and I'll put this in quotes, homes for unwed mothers that were run in documented cruel manner by Roman Catholic nuns. And these girls were indentured servants as they worked in these laundries. And this happened, actually, I'll be honest with you, it started in the 1800s, and it kept going until the 90s. And they were meant to be reformatories, if you will. And is that a word? Of course that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these women, of course, had given themselves to men and were apparently damned to hell unless they, I guess, worked off their sins at these laundries. I have seen documentaries and I have seen other docudramas about the Magdalen laundries. This is adapted from a highly decorated novel by Claire Keenan. It was directed by a man named Tim Mylance, and it was written by a screenwriter by the name of Enda Walsh, and it is a very good movie. It's not big in terms of its scope. It's just very personal and very wrenching in a lot of what it deals with.
I'm seeing from the movie poster that you so generously provided that Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Cillian Murphy himself, and Alan Maloney were all producers on this film.
They were. This is, it's an important story that needs to be heard and told. And Cillian Murphy is just a wonderful actor. He's done such a wide variety of roles, and this is his most recent and one of his best performances, I think. And
he likes small things like these. Moving on, Michael, please.
Well, sure. We'll do what we can. We'll zip through the rest of them. We'll play lightning round here, Mark, because
lightning round.
You pushed me against the wall. Okay,
right.
Let's start with Christmas Eve in Miller's Point. It is the first Christmas-themed movie I have encountered this year, and it's a modest but very wry look at an extended family gathering in suburban Long Island during the early 2000s. And that means some needle drops from the era. And it looks at the various generations that are represented in this clan and how they approach the holiday in different ways. And it goes on a bit long, like some holiday celebrations, but it does get off site in a way when a couple of the teenagers in the bunch ditch the home celebration to join their peers in some rambunctious mischief.
Is this a quirky comedy, Michael?
It is a warm slice of life, and it.
I might like warm slice of life.
I think you might really like it. I do think so, and I also think that it does a lot with a little. It's the work of Tyler Taormina, who both co-wrote the script and directed. And Michael Cera is in it. He's one of the producers, and he plays a local, like Long Island cop. Who is keeping an eye on things on Christmas Eve. And there are moments that really resonated for me. For instance, at one point, the family, in the middle of their celebration, go out to the street because they know like the local fire department or someone will come zooming by with a trail of beautifully decorated and, streaming light bedecked trucks and cars. It's the annual, Christmas supersonic parade. So they all run out for that. Hey, it's time for that. There are moments that made me think of how people go to candy cane lanes and what have you during the holidays. I thought it was sweet. Is it a great movie? it's okay. But I have to say that it's a nice way to get into the season. At least
All
for
right,
me.
I like it. All right, Christmas Eve in Miller's Point is in theaters.
Yes, it is indeed in theaters, and if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, it will eventually make its way to streaming.
Well, it'll eventually make it, but it's not there now.
Sooner than you think, probably,
I
because
see.
it's a very limited rollout for the movie.
I see.
So, I don't say hedge your bets, but, I'm sure it's going to be a fun thing to watch at home. All right, on to a movie from France that is actually not a French movie so much as a kind of cool and thoughtful science fiction movie. It's called Meanwhile on Earth, and I thought this was beautifully done. It's about a young woman played by Megan Northam, and she is dealing with the loss of her brother, Frank, who was an astronaut. And when he went on his first mission, he disappeared, and no one knows what became of him. But she
Wow.
begins getting, at night, while looking up at the stars, sort of his voice in her head, and it motivates her to try to figure out a way to bring him back. But the question is it him? Is it an alien force? What is getting to her? Is it her own psychological problems?
Sure.
It's
But what was it? What is it?
Well, to say that would be to undermine the movie. This is so you don't want to watch the film, or you don't have to watch the film. No. This is a very good and atmospheric and thoughtful science fiction film, and it all elements of mystery here, and also family trauma. And I think it's very, very well done, and it's kind of not like any sci-fi movie I've seen in a while, maybe
Wow.
ever.
You like it. Meanwhile on Earth,
I
it's
thought it
called.
was solid, and it is also what we like to say in limited release right now.
In theaters. All right.
Okay. By the way, thumbs up to Jérémy Clapin, who was the writer-director of Meanwhile on Earth.
Very nice.
Okay, now some, I would call them guilty pleasures. These are those movies we joke about this. Not terrible. Michael Snyder, The Mark Thompson Show. All right, so let's start with a movie called Elevation. We'll just zip right through these.
Yeah.
It is more science fiction, and it is about what appears to be some kind of invasion. Is it from below the Earth? Is it from outer space? We don't know, but we establish the situation 3 years into whatever this problem is, as monsters are terrorizing and killing people, and the only safe harbor, and it's not a harbor, is in the heights of the mountains above 8,000 feet. The monsters don't venture there for some reason, and no one knows particularly why.
What do you mean for some reason? We all know that mountain areas are a good place to go to get away from monsters.
Well, perhaps, but they have like a border that they set up around their community, and they know that these creatures will not
I see.
cross the border and get higher than 8,000 feet.
Okay.
So it's the Rocky Mountains, and
All
we
right.
meet the always wonderful Anthony Mackie as a single dad, a very bulky scientist played by the lovely Morena Baccarin, and a third friend who is involved, a young woman, and they're all hoping to help the single dad's son, who has a breathing issue and needs oxygen filters that are running out, and the only place to get them is below 8,000 feet in Boulder, Colorado,
Sure.
nearby Boulder. And so there's a mission that Dad and the two women undertake, despite the presence of these monsters.
Wow.
And I thought
Do
it
we
was,
see the monsters? What kind of
we
monsters
do.
are they?
They're monsters. And actually, okay, full disclosure, my buddy Bill Bose was the effects guy on this thing. He was in charge of special effects, and he did a great job. The creatures are really kind of creepy and cool. And this is not a great film. I got to make that clear. But I actually
But do
thought
they
for
get
what it
the
is.
stuff for his daughter, Michael?
You keep asking me to reveal the actual nuts and bolts as if you just don't care about people enjoying these and looking at these things and enjoying
What
them.
about for those of us who are not going to go see it? We need to
well,
know.
we'll
Does
talk
he-
about it
I'm
later.
worried about the child getting the breathing equipment.
I really can't reveal that, but
right.
George Nolfi, the director, and the screenwriters, including John Glenn and Jacob Roman, it's okay. I mean, I think home video is the way to go with this thing, and it is in fact released wide today, and it's not bad, but it's not game changing. Let's put it that way. Elevation, decent. As these War of the Worlds sort of things go, but the question is, are they coming from below?
Sure.
Are they coming from above? We don't know
Those
where
are the
they're coming
questions I was asking.
all right. Okay. Weekend in Taipei is the work, or at least a production, and co-screenwriting credit goes to this guy, of Luc Besson, the great pop culture generating French filmmaker who made things like The Fifth Element and La Femme Nikita and movies of that ilk. And he co-authored this film, Weekend in Taipei, and he has his new action hero in the embodiment of Luke Evans, who people might know here in the States as Gaston in the live action Beauty and the Beast. And here he plays kind of a hard-nosed, I guess we'd call him agent of sorts of the DEA, John Lawler. And he is brought back to a former haunt, Taipei in Taiwan, where an ex-lover lives as the wife of a drug lord, and she has a young son, and there's a kind of a romantic triangle that is kind of implicit here, and it's action plus. There's your chases, your battles, your fights, your hand-to-hand combat, and it's very entertaining.
This is a good versus evil type movie, isn't it?
Well, sort of. And
vanquishing the mob, the drug
lord is a vicious bastard.
Yeah,
the vicious bastard played, by the way, by Song Kang, who's a pretty cool Asian actor, and the young woman who plays the object of both of their desires, obviously John, the DEA agent, and the drug lord, is Lun Mei Gui, and she's pretty damn good too. There's a moment at the very beginning, I'm not telling tales out of school here, where she is considering buying a very fancy car, and she's window shopping on her way to the car dealership, and she looks garbed like Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, and they're playing Moon River, and I'm saying, you're obviously, this is Luc Besson, putting a pin in pop culture references. It is not a great film, but it is terribly entertaining. I kind of was caught up in it.
A lot of screeching and shooting and chases.
Yeah, there's that kind of stuff. And, are they going to be caught? Are they going to survive? What's the deal with the kid?
Do they survive, Michael?
Will your family survive? That's the big question. Watching this thing.
Do they catch the drug dealer at the end or not?
Let's just wrap things up with Black Cab, which is a modest little horror film. Not great, but it does feature the very talented and often funny Nick Frost, who is Simon Pegg's comrade in comedy, in things like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz.
Sure.
They have done a lot of work together. Well, on his own, Frost plays the driver of a black cab who picks up a young woman and her abusive boyfriend.
This does not look like a comedy.
It is not a comedy. And even though this cab driver, played by Frost, is kind of seems like a fun-loving guy, he is, in fact, I'm going to invoke the word again, sinister. He might have a little more in common with Hugh Grant's character in Heretic than we would care to have. Again, not great. It's sort of a very limited scope here because a lot of it takes place in the cab and the environs on a trip ostensibly to their home from this night out, but things go a little cock-a-hoop.
Ostensibly is a ding word.
And director Bruce Goodison, it's okay. Frost was one of the screenwriters on it. I didn't think it was great. It, in fact, I think was made for British television, and it's getting a kind of a limited theatrical release here, and it will be available on Shudder, the horror-themed streaming service, very, very soon, if not today. In fact, that's the only place you can see it. And it's called Black Cab. It's okay. I mean, I wasn't blown away by it, but it wasn't terrible.
Well, I'm excited to, am I in a recap situation, or do you want to mention the Diplomat season 2 is supposed to be really great?
Oh, it's really something else. I know
people love
Kim
the
is
Diplomat.
consuming it.
Kim is consumed by the Diplomat.
She is
season
consumed
2.
by it. Kerry Russell, who people, I had a crush on her when she was Felicity on the CW with that big mop of curly hair, and then I was dazzled by her in The Americans, where she played a Russian agent and could, she's like a chameleon playing all these different characters. Fantastic. And now she has gravitas as an American diplomat in London dealing with an international crisis that developed in season 1. So if you haven't watched season 1, don't even bother with season 2, but get on
season 1.
Oh my God, it is so entertaining. And her husband is played by a terrific actor by the name of Rufus Sewell. He's also in the diplomatic corps. And there is intrigue, and we don't know who's responsible for this international terroristic
Well,
incident.
who is responsible, Michael?
You keep asking me, and I'll tell you what right now, Mark. Sit down and watch The Diplomat on Netflix if you
I
get a
don't know
chance.
why I just love that as a runner. All right.
There you go. There you go.
Mars, who always has something nice to say about everything. Diplomat 2 was a letdown.
Yeah, okay.
They cut it down to 6 episodes instead of 8. And you're wondering at the end, what the F, really?
It's called the cliffhanger, Mars. As a matter
Come
of
on,
fact,
Mars. It's called a cliffhanger,
Wake
dude.
up, buddy. Get on board.
Watching The Diplomat, says Lee. All right, so let me quickly recap
Please
the
do.
magical reflections of Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster. Loves The Diplomat, as we just told you, season 2, but he says you got to see season 1 first, notwithstanding the comments of Mars. The Black Cab movie is a movie with Nick Frost. It takes place a lot in the cab. He says it's okay. It's got its own virtues, but you have to be ready for a lot of action that takes place in and around the cab.
Yeah, and there's some ghost action. I wanted so much more.
You wanted to
considering.
like it, but you couldn't really like it.
I couldn't rave.
Weekend in Taipei sort of falls into that same category. Some great action sequences and some good stuff of drug lords and people running from them and good and evil. And,
Luke Evans apparently is Luc Besson's new leading man guy.
Yeah, but anyway, A Weekend in Taipei is in theaters. And Elevation is the movie about the man who's a father, has to get his son that breathing apparatus that the son desperately needs to survive. But they're monsters below 8,000 feet. So even as he inhabits this area above 8,000 feet, behind the walls, he has to go below 8,000 feet to get this device in Colorado. And so he does, assisted by the co-star, who's this lovely gal. It's always good to have a lovely gal with you. That's my dad. There's a lovely gal. That's my dad's term.
I always feel
There's
better.
a lovely gal.
I always feel better in the presence of a lovely gal.
Yeah, Dad, I've got to go get that breathing device. Oh, don't take that lovely gal with you. Yeah. Anyway, Elevation, he said, is good, not great. Good, not great. Meanwhile on Earth is the film that is a sci-fi /
family drama.
/ what? Little supernatural.
Drenched. No, it's science fiction, but you're drenched in this crazy atmosphere. And
I love being drenched in a crazy atmosphere. Drenched loses her brother, the astronaut. And she hears voices as she looks up at the great beyond. How much is indeed her brother communicating with her?
She hears him. Is he really there? And
Yes.
what are these strange people showing up?
Yes. Is he really there, Michael? Or can you
I can't tell you,
Okay,
Mark.
Christmas Eve in Miller's Point is the early 2000s warm slice of life movie.
It's a period dramedy. No, it's not even. It's very comic, and it's
Got
just
some
like
comic moments, but you're saying it's not.
no,
Otherwise,
it
it's just
is. It's not a broad comedy. It's amusing, but it's wonderful to be in the presence of this family and seeing how they interact, because it does reflect a lot of what happens around the holidays for a good deal of the celebrants.
And celebrants is a ding word. By the way, I wanted to. I'll ask you next time. Holiday movie stuff. Small things. By the way, Christmas Eve in Miller's Point is in theaters. Small things like these. The Cillian Murphy, apparently very well acted, performed offering about the Magdalene laundries and the essentially indentured servitude and abuse that so many women endured through the 90s. Michael gave us that remarkable fact.
It's nuts, man.
Yeah. He really liked it, and he recommends it. Heretic is the Hugh Grant-led offering with Sophie Thatcher. Topher Grace makes a small appearance as well.
Is he one of your poker buddies, Topher Grace?
No, who's the other guy who's in?
Wilmer Valderrama.
Wilmer, no, Wilmer not so much. The
Danny Masterson?
no, Danny, of course, yeah, Danny was one. But who was the? He wasn't in. Who was in? I forget.
It's okay.
Not important. He was married to. Doesn't matter. I've lost my mind. All right. Heretic, anyway, with Hugh Grant. He really likes it. It's a psychological thriller.
Thriller with a lot of religious subtext and solid stuff.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Really, really good.
The creep factor is
Who was the
high.
first Spider-Man?
The very first Spider-Man? Tobey Maguire.
That's who I know through poker. Tobey Maguire.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
did he use his spidey sense to figure out what people were holding? I'm just
I wish I'd thought of that. That's clever. But he likes, of all of these films, Great Culture Blaster, is Heretic your pick?
Heretic, Meanwhile on Earth. Well, you know what? The best is the Magdalene Laundries drama. It's the most important.
Small
of the
things
films.
like these is your
Small
favorite.
things like these.
But what a great offering you've given us, and thank you.
Hey,
you can read The Culture Blaster at voicesf.org. Correct. voicesf.org. The Great Culture Blaster's musings. If you think you like them when he's speaking here, you'll love them when you're reading him. He's really a man of the written word, come to life here on this show every Friday. Michael?
Yes, sir.
Any closing thoughts?
49ers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Early game on Sunday, 10 a.m. I will be poised to see my guys, my team.
Love it when you're poised. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Let me hear it for the Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder, everybody.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.